here for the first week's challenges of Last Man Standing, and nothing really says that you are a man like eating a lot of food. So we have got a little challenge here. The last one to eat all 5 of their hot dogs is going to be eliminated. Also to be noted in this challenge is that anyone who vomits first is automatically disqualified. So, 5 of us start this challenge, only 4 of us will walk away to the next.
3, 2, 1, go.
Kobayashi.
I'm ready. I'm playing with my food.
Done.
Oh, make one.
I have you with that.
Oh, that's...
Done. Oh, zoom in.
My name is Billy, and I'm not the last man standing.
Poor Billy. Poor Billy. Of course, I guessed that before they ever went. I guessed that. Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to church. I really appreciate it so much that you take time in the summer to come to church. And I want to welcome everybody who's watching us online. It's great to have you join us as well. I meet people from time to time, say, hey, we watch you online there. And hey, we'd love to have you. It's great. And I want to welcome everybody that's in Isanti. Thank you for being here today at our Isanti campus. Thank you. Appreciate it. We are starting a brand new series, Last Man Standing. And what this whole series, for 4 weeks, we're going to be talking about men. And what does it mean to be a man today? What does manly even mean? I think that as we kind of describe what it is to be a man, I think all you ladies will kind of get the idea. It will probably help you out also as well as you understand, what men are and what they're supposed to be. It'll probably help you out as well. I think that we live in a culture today that there's so much confusion on, what is it to be a man? I think that we've so, blurred and so confused the difference between men and women and what's a man supposed to be. I think their role, there's so much confusion in just the role of a man today. I think there's huge issues there. But it hasn't always been this way. Even not that long ago, when I was a boy, I was born in 1960, so some of you are thinking that's ancient, but that's really not, okay? But when I was a boy, we didn't have this issue. It was very clear, men and women. It was very clear. Matter of fact, as a boy growing up, it was so clear that you were either a boy or a girl, and boys and girls dressed differently. They had different hair. Boys had short hair, girls had long hair. I mean, across the board. There was no difference in that. Boys, would play certain sports. Girls wouldn't. Girls would have different things. Boys and girls would dress different, talk different, look different. I remember a time, actually, when I was a child that colors even meant something. If somebody was expecting and they had a baby girl, they would get pink, because pink represented girl. And if they were having a baby boy, it would be blue, because blue represented a boy. I mean, that's how clearly it was defined, and you knew that you were a boy or a girl. And there was just such a separation between the two. The two never came very close in anything. I remember even growing up, like I said, in the 60s, maybe later 60s, late 60s, early 70s. I remember some of these things as TV and programming and everything. It was so clear, the distinction between my mom and my dad. Their roles were completely different. And I'm not saying that there is a right way to dress or a wrong way to dress. I'm not saying that. I mean, what's a boy supposed to dress like? I mean, I have no idea. The Bible doesn't tell us. That's not my point here. My point is not that a boy is supposed to look a certain way and a girl's supposed to look a certain way. My point is, when I was growing up, there was a clear distinction. Okay, it wasn't right or wrong, it was just clearly a clear distinction. In my home, my dad had a clear role, and my mom's role was completely different. My dad did all of the fixing and building and outside things. You know, the things that took muscle. He would do those things, kind of the, if you could just split it down, outside tasks. My mom had pretty much the inside tasks. My dad took the lead role in teaching and training us kids. He took the lead role in disciplining us. And yeah, my mom kind of held up his rules and his discipline, but he took a responsibility that I am going to raise my children, I'm going to teach and train them, and he did, and he took that role very seriously. My mom supported that role. My mom was definitely the nurturer. She had a clear role, different than my dad. They both loved us, but that love was so clearly different. We as kids growing up, it was so clear you could tell my dad loved us this way, my mom loved us this way. She was nurturing. Matter of fact, my mom would tell you today, and it embarrasses the heck out of me when we meet people or we're together, and she tells stories about, Kevin, in front of people. Oh, Kevin, do you remember when I used to hold you on my lap and cuddle you, and I pretend like, well, no, Mom, I was a baby. She said, well, when you were 12, So, my mom had that kind of thing, and my mom did domestic things again. I'm not saying that, the male or female roles. What I'm pointing is that they were so clearly distinct. And even in the family in general, my dad took the role in the family as being the head of the house. I can remember even as a kid filling out forms. A guy came and did their taxes all the time at the table. My dad was in business for himself. And I can remember even in tax forms, it was how it would be labeled. It would say head of house and then wife. That's just how it was clearly defined, and it was so different. My dad took very seriously that this was the Hasseltine home, and he set the direction. He set the tone for our home. Our home as Hasseltines, we will do this and we will do that. We will behave this way, and he kind of set that. I remember he even taught us a type of pride, the fact that our name, that we had to defend our name, and that this Hasseltine family had value that you could be proud of. And he would teach us things like, well, do you know why why we wouldn't cheat on something, or why you would. It was in construction. We would always have to clean up, and other crews wouldn't have to clean up. And I can remember, 10 years old, 12 years old, child labor, asking my dad, why do we got to pick all this stuff up? Those guys don't, whatever. And he would say, because we're Hasseltines. And he had pride in that, and he set that tone for that. And these things were important. And their roles were completely different. And it wasn't just in my family. TV advertisements were that way. Advertisement, radio, magazines. They would target outside stuff, would be marketed towards men. Inside stuff would be marketed towards women. That haircuts were, short hair guys, long hair girls. How we would dress, girls wore dresses and boys didn't, and that sort of thing. And even marketing was that way. Culture was that way. It was pretty clear the differences in identities of male and female and the roles of men and women. It was very clear. Now, again, I'm not saying any of those were right or wrong, but yet they were clearly defined. So as a boy growing up, you kind of knew this is what is expected of me. This is who I am as a man versus I'm not a woman. I'm a man, therefore there are differences. There was a time, and this is so embarrassing, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. I was, thank God I was only about 3 years old, but if my mom was here, she would tell you this story with pride, I was 3 years old, and I had a doll. Rick Keller's here, I know, Jason, all you guys, all the guys at the men's breakfast aren't coming back. I had a doll, and I pushed it around in a carriage, and I had my 2 middle fingers in my mouth, and I would push this thing. My mom thought it was the cutest thing in the world. So I did this for like a week, And my dad came home and told my mom in no uncertain terms, I don't ever want to see him doing that again, ever. He can't play with that. He shouldn't do that. He do that. Why? Because he's a boy. Boys don't do that. There was a clear distinction. To this day, I thank my dad. Just off the record, okay, I thank my dad for doing that. But, hey, there was a clear distinction. But then there started to be a change in our culture. Some of you who are too young to remember this, you can read about it, but, kind of in the 60s, there started to be this kind of like pushing against the system. I know there was a huge, women's lib thing, and women were burning their bras, and we're trying to be equal, and, we're not, we're changing roles. And listen, I saw everything change. As a matter of fact, when I was in junior high, okay, so we're about the mid-70s, and new curriculum kind of started to come out with, math problems and different things where actually they were starting to blend the roles of men and women, and you remember hairstyles started changing. It started changing with men first, but you remember in the mid to late 60s and then in the 70s for sure, long hair. So guys started wearing long hair. I remember the comments. I remember people saying, I can't tell that if that's a boy or a girl. Now, there's nothing right or wrong about long hair. That's not my point. My point is the roles started getting blurred. Okay, the genders started getting blurred. Now you couldn't tell, is there a boy haircut and is there a girl haircut? No, you can't tell anymore. And that went through everything, through clothing, started changing. Roles started changing, and women taking men's jobs. No, it's not a men's or a woman's job. The point is that the roles just started blurring completely in just about everything in life. And there's this, it seems like our culture was trying so hard to bring, I think, fairness. I think that, trying to bring, these things together, men and women together, these genders together, so you couldn't really tell. And I kind of saw all that stuff going. I remember my two sons, my oldest son, Eric, was probably about 12, 13, 14 years old, somewhere in there. He wanted to get an earring. He asked me for an earring. I said, I would cut the bottom of your ear off before I would give you an earring. I mean, okay, it's just my thing, There's nothing right or wrong about earrings, okay? But I was through that experience of these blending of the genders. And in my world, girls had earrings and boys didn't. So he went to my mom and she took him and got an earring put in, Can't believe it. So, and that was a challenge for me to see these changes coming. But yet we've seen our culture come to, it's so blurred. And to a point today, we've been blurring these, that we live in an era today that there's just kind of like, one gender. Everything's kind of unisex. We can't really tell what's male or female anymore. Got some pictures here of just hairstyles, dress, clothing, things like that. I can't tell what's a guy's shirt, what's a girl's shirt, what guys' shoes are, what girl. Here we got, at least, we got the long hair there, but, shaved heads or long hair. I don't know. This is today. This isn't just, New York. This is getting to be all over the place. And I know we live up here in the Midwest and even up in the North Branch, Isani area. We might not see a lot of this, but it's getting more and more popular. This is where we live today. This is it. We're totally blending the genders. So you can't tell, and we've kind of, just mixed these two together. And here's the point. It comes down to this. And I'm speaking specifically to guys, but guys, who are you? What are you supposed to be? What's your role in life? Are you just a undefined woman? Are you supposed to be the breadwinner or not? You don't know. Are you supposed to, your wife has a child, are you supposed to, to be a good man today, to be a modern man today, are you supposed to raise your kids, stay home, take your... I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking you. Do you have any idea what you're supposed to be? What is your role? Are you supposed to be tough? Are you supposed to be weak? Are you supposed to be emotional? Are you supposed to act like girls? I'll tell you what, I just think, and here's the reason we're spending a few weeks on this, is because I think men today, more than women, men today have no idea that we've so blended, the roles. We've so blended the sexes that there's just a unisex, culture, that men are almost disciplined for being, I don't know, traditionally manly, which I don't know what that is, but just traditionally manly, and you're almost punished for doing that, and you're supposed to be more feminine or more neutral. You don't know. Here's another question, and I'll be honest with you. We need to be concerned about this. What about young boys growing up today? I mean, what are they supposed to do? And I'm not the one who made this up. I've read a lot of stuff about, our education system, at least in our culture in America today, is primarily built for females. It's a female education system. Little boys don't naturally want to color and express themselves through color and paint, but they're forced to. And as a matter of fact, if you have sons or if you have grandsons, and some of this boy thing, traditional boy thing, comes out and they're a little aggressive or they want to play, they're chastised, they're disciplined for not being as nice as that little girl over there. Well, what are our boys growing up with? What do they aspire to? What are they supposed to develop on the inside? Is there anything that would differentiate the fact that if you have two children and one's a boy and one's a girl, what's to differentiate them? And I think there's such a confusion. And I think our boys growing up today, in our culture today that has so blended the roles, and it's kind of a unisex kind of a thing, that I don't think they have anything, there's so little there to go on, what to build on. And I think there's a mass confusion in our little boys growing up today. The fact that, and again, I'm not trying to make a political statement, I'm not trying to say what's right or wrong, I'm just trying to set the stage for this is where we live. And a little boy, if it's natural or whatever, I know that when I was in junior high, they started saying, well, the only reason boys act the way they do is because they're taught to. Let's start giving girls trucks and, I was going to say army guns, but we don't use fingers anymore. We kind of got away from that. But I don't know where I was going with that. If we force boys to play with dolls and we force girls to play with, then we'll all be the same when we grow up. And I think there's mass confusion. I think there's difficulty, and especially for boys, what are you supposed to do? Even you guys, you have no idea. What am I supposed to be at home? What am I supposed to be at work? I don't know. Well, I think a lot of this came together. A lot of this happened because of this whole push to be equal. And I want to make this very clear. It has nothing to do with culture. It has nothing to do with, what I like, what I don't like, what we like, don't like. That this whole idea of males and females being equal is a right thing, and it's from God Himself. Males and females are equal in God's sight. They are equal. As a matter of fact, the Bible says this about men and women. He says, nevertheless, earlier than this, he was talking about men were created and then woman was taken out of man. But now he said, hey, here's where we are today. In the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. And we know that from God's perspective, males and females are equal. They have the same value. Men and women both are intelligent. Men and women both have talents and skills and abilities. And I think maybe this blurring of the genders has tried to be this attempt to bring equality. And of course there should be equality. I mean, who in the world would be against equality? For if two people do the same job, they should get the same money. I mean, there's no problem with that. There's no issue with that. God is for us being equal. God created men and women equal. But here's my question. Have we mistaken equal for being the same? Have we mistaken the fact that we're trying to be equal for the same definition of sameness, because equal does not mean same. We are equal in value. We are equal in intelligence and abilities. But we are most certainly not the same. And I think that that's where the confusion has come in. The confusion has come that we think, well, if we're equal, therefore we're the same. Listen, men and women are not the same. We are not even close to the same. I mean, look down, look over, look, you can see we're not the same. I mean, we are not the same. I mean, we're the same in the fact that we're human beings. We have value for God, but we are not the same. God created us so differently. I mean, look, science has proved it over and over again. We are different. You know, our chromosomes are so different. You know, our bodies are so different. Men have 45% more muscle mass than a woman. I mean, just across the board. 30% more lung capacity than any woman across the board. Women have more body fat than men. And that's a good thing, by the way. That's a good thing. Okay? Makes women's skin smooth and makes them curvy and keeps them warm. There you go. That's it. We are so different. How our bodies function. Women's heart rates are faster. Men's metabolism is faster. I mean, across the board, male and female. They can dig up bones from 100 years ago and tell you if that was a male or a female. We are different structurally. We are different in how we think. That means science has proven men and women think from different sides of the brain. They use it. We are not the same. We are so different emotionally. We are not made up emotionally the same. We don't trigger the same. We don't think the same. There are so many differences. And here's the whole challenge. Here's the whole thing in our life is this, that equality is a must, and we are, but it does not equal sameness. And when we try to blur those together and say we're the same, is when we run into all kinds of issues and all kinds of problems. You see, we are not the same by God's design. God designed us differently. We're the same value, but He designed us so differently because that's what He wanted to do. As a matter of fact, we see way back in creation, it says, God created mankind, human beings, in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. He created them different. One is a male and one is a female. And they are completely different in so many areas and in so many ways that we are so different. And in this series, what we're going to do for the next 3 weeks is we are going to talk about not what culture thinks, not what personal preference is, but what does God say? What does the Bible say of some things that a man should be, that He created specifically for men? So guys, that you will know this is what God created you and why He created you male and what that means. And how that is different being a male than being a female. And I know a lot of us might think, and you might be thinking right there, our culture's kind of taught us, I'm not going to let anybody define me. I just don't want anybody to define me. I'm going to be different. I'm not going to fit into a mold. And you know what? I understand that culture not fitting us into a mold. I can understand you saying, I'm a unique individual and I want to be me. I get that. But what about when it comes to God? Now, if your neighbor says they want you to fit into a mold, I get that. But what about God? If over the next few weeks we talk about, this is what God says. This is your purpose. I mean, shouldn't we want to say, okay, God, if that's what you created me to be, then I want to be the best at that I can. And it's not just culture. God says some very specific things. And it doesn't say anything about how we should dress or look. I mean, what kind of job you should have. That's not the point. The point is there are some specific things that He created them male and He created them female. That He created them differently for different roles and different purposes in life. And we're going to look at that. And here's my challenge to all you guys, is to look at that and say, this is God's will for me. It's God's desire that he created me male for this purpose and for this reason. And I'm going to be challenging you over the next few weeks to try and excel and to be the best you can be at how God created you. Now, I know that we live in a culture that is genderless. We have tried so hard to blur the genders, to make that gender, doesn't matter, where gender has nothing to do with it. And I would say this, for so many things, I would agree the Bible doesn't address that. But there are some things that, for a reason, God created them male for this reason, and he created them female for this reason. And here's what I think, and I just want to close with just this thought. I've often wondered, what does God think? I mean, God looks down at us. What does God think when we tell him? When we redefine to God how he created us? I mean, sometimes I wonder, who do we think we are? To talk back to God and say, oh no, there's no differences, and let's just blend this, and you can have this role, and you can... It's like, here's what I think. I think God specifically created us male and female, that we will all do better to exercise our masculinity, our femininity more. I think this. I think God would look at us and say, if you want to know what I want you to do, I want you to separate those. Because I created you both special, unique. Ladies, you should be proud to be a woman. Because God created you different than men. To be a woman. And try to be the best woman that you can be. Guys, God created you to be a man. Try to be the best man that you can be. And I'm not talking about who should do what job or what kind of pants you wear. I'm not talking about that. There are some other things that God created us that I believe this with all my heart. The more we can separate the two, the more special each one becomes. The more special and the more fulfilling each one becomes. And so I really want you to join us. Try to stay tuned for the next 3 weeks as we talk about really what does it mean to be born a man? What does manhood mean in the eyes of God? And now we're going to close. I'm going to let Shaheen go ahead and close the service there in Isani with prayer. And we're going to close today. Father, I know that we just kind of set things up today. Kind of a little tension between what does it mean. But Father, I know as the next few weeks we go on that you are very clear. You didn't make a mistake. You clearly created males and females. We are both so special in your eyes. One is not better than the other. But you created us different by your design. You willed us to be different. I pray over the next several weeks we can identify that difference and enhance that difference that you created in us. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.